Welcome everybody. I'm Ken Massey from Visit Scotland, and for those of you that maybe joined later on in the session, as we've been advised, we've got about 20 minutes or so on this topic of new infrastructure. And just to sort of recap that this is being recorded, so if you don't want to appear on the recording, you can have your camera off. If you're happy to be visible, that's great. We've got a reasonable number of people included today. And to ask a question and to contribute, if you can raise your virtual hand, and I'll do my best to come to you and get through everybody in the right order. So I guess there was two key things we've been asked to cover and to feedback on. So just one under the auspices of the new infrastructure question, if you like. Just some reflections on aspects of the presentations that you heard this morning. And secondly, any additional learning and insights from organisations that we've got here in the group. That would be great. By way of introduction, what I'll ask you to do is just to give your name and the organisation you work for, just so we can capture that information as well. So over to you. Who would like to kick the discussion off? I almost want to go to you, Fiona, as someone who always contributes well.
Thank you. Oh goodness, no, I'm going to have to think long and hard about that. I'm Fiona Murray from Forestry and Land Scotland. I'm Visitor Partnerships Manager. I've had a bit of involvement in our Stay the Night camper van trial, which in itself is not new infrastructure, but it's a new approach. Well, this is the second year we'll be running a new approach to people wanting to stay the night in our some of our car parks. I see my colleague Jill Walker's here as well. I don't know if there's anybody else from FLS here. It's been quite a challenge, and it's not a, as Pete said, it's still a work in progress. We did this Stay the Night trial last year for about, well, it ended up being about 6 months. We did some research on the first 3 months. It was generally was very, very well received, to the extent that we got about off the top of my head, about 800 bits of feedback, 400 of which were emails. That was 400 people who actually sat down and wrote us emails, mostly about how chuffed they were, how they really wanted us to carry on with it. We also got feedback from our colleagues out in the regions as to how that had worked. And we are running it again now, ever since Scottish Tourism has managed to open up again at the end of April, and it's going great guns. Not always entirely smoothly. We've had to remove some sites from the Stay the Night trial, and we've added in some new ones. Yeah, I think that in terms of what I can contribute, I think that's about it. If anyone's got any questions, I'm very happy to attempt to answer them. And I'm sure I can count on Jill as well, since she's there.
That's great. Thank you, Fiona. I mean, because it is an important initiative that links well with the infrastructure. Can I come to Shail? Have I pronounced that right, Shail?
Mute. I think I'm unmuted now. Is that right?
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Shail Patel here from Disabled Ramblers. I'm the Somerset rep for Disabled Ramblers. Very impressed with how you guys in Scotland have got all the interested parties together and got everybody talking and moving forward. Fantastic. Absolutely kind of joined up thinking that we need across the UK. Well done. How are you dealing with issues of accessibility for disabled people in these recreational spaces? Just for example, I had a quick look on View Ranger and I couldn't find anything in the cairngorms, for example, that is accessible to walkers with wheels. And so just wondered how you were dealing with this, and particularly going forward in terms of infrastructure development.
Thanks. Great question. I'll maybe come in first there, just from the perspective of the Rural Tourism Infrastructure Fund in particular. because that is an intrinsic part of any application that comes forward. And the fund is primarily for things like toilet facilities, for car parking, and some of the work that was highlighted by Pete there in terms of pathways. All of those have accessibility as a key part of them. And for example, some of the toilet developments have had changing places facilities as part of those, as a real fundamental of it. In some locations where there are pathway developments, for example, Old Man of Storr, where it is a fair climb to get there, there's aspects of it that are not accessible, but the accessibility aspect has been absolutely taken into consideration, so the experience can be maximised or certainly optimised as far as possible. But it's definitely something that's inbuilt to all of those applications. Ryan, would you like to come in with anything related to that one?
It wasn't that one. I was going to ask Fiona regarding the pilot schemes. My name's Ed Ryan, and I work for the Welsh Government. I've only been in post in tourism for 5 weeks, so got plenty of experience in business and economic development and lots of other things. But tourism is very new to me, but it's something very close to my heart. Regarding the what we call, I think, wild camping in that camper vans and people are parking. No, I shouldn't call it wild camping.
No, well, not in Scotland. In Scotland, true wild camping, which is not car camping, is not anywhere near your car. Wild camping, going off, a good distance away with a tent and doing that responsibly is legal under the Scottish Outdoor Access Code. Okay. So this is not wild camping what we're calling, but I know what you're talking about.
I'll rephrase it then. It's just camper vans, tents and motorhomes. Yeah. I think just pitching up anywhere essentially, and especially on sites that they shouldn't do, such as public car parks, etc. So my point is really, I appreciate you're undertaking a pilot scheme. How are you ensuring that the facilities, technically a lot of car parks don't have any facilities, so it's how you ensure that there isn't rubbish left and mess, etc., etc. I know some of these things are self-contained, but a lot of them aren't, are they?
We've made it very clear that this Stay the Night trial is for self-contained camper vans and motorhomes.
Okay.
So I'll tell you the positive stuff first. We would say it is for self-contained camper vans and motorhomes. It's not for people camping with a tent pitched beside their car. It's not a case of pitching up for more than one night. And the majority of the locations we have chosen have no facilities. Yeah. We are endeavouring to. One of the things we learned from last year was to try and communicate better where your next nearest place might be. If this place is full, just as part of the general, move on. If it's too busy, move on. We also have more boots on the ground, staff going and regularly checking on the sites. We're asking people for their opinions. We're doing a visitor survey through a QR code or directly through the website at all of our sites and getting a reasonable amount of feedback back from that. Now, if your question is, have we got this right? Are we getting nobody doing anything wrong? Of course we are. And even if we are taking a site off the Stay the Night trial, it doesn't mean that nobody's staying there. Yeah.
It's just a general question, so you've answered the question, Fiona. So thank you.
And so you're aware, I mean, we're still in close contact with our former colleagues who are now at NRW. So yes. If Dave Liddy from NRW, speak to him. He knows quite a lot about what we're doing.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed.
Good
luck in your job, James.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, it was in part. It was. Sorry, I should introduce myself. I'm James Lawrence. I'm the interim sustainable tourism manager at the Brecon Beacons National Park in Wales. In part, it was just to say hello to Ed, as it might well be worth us speaking to one another about these issues. And also, a lot of our sites are either in third-party ownership, such as an RW or other public sector partners. Some are national trust. And a lot of these sites are off-grid, as you touched on. And I just wondered about if you'd got any insight into off-grid provision, because it's something that we're trying to grapple with at the moment.
Anyone available to comment on that? Because that's beyond my realm of information. Something we can potentially pick up, though.
It's something that we struggle with as well, with our car park payment. I can see Jill nodding here, like our car park ticketing machines, which has been one of the ways we're trying to actually get people to pay this year for their stay the nights, where it's on a location where we've got a car park ticket machine. Then we're asking to pay 2 daytime tickets to stay overnight. But of course, it's a problem we have in various areas of Scotland, and not even just the most far-flung areas that you might think, where there's no mobile reception, you can't do contactless payment, you can't use your credit card, and of course nobody carries cash anymore. And some of these places we can't even get we can't get car park machines in for all of those reasons. There's no electricity, there's no reception, and so on. So I'm afraid we don't have an answer to that. Some of them I think have got solar panels, but that's not necessarily something that you can rely on. Sorry.
No, that's fine. We're in, as I'm sure most of our national parks and protected landscapes are very much in the same position, and we're looking at similar solutions: battery storage, solar, composting, toilets, sort of biodigester, you name it. We're starting to think about those types of innovative solutions, but yeah, we'll probably come back to you guys and others, and likewise when we have some better solutions that actually work in these locations.
We do have a number of composting loos, and it is something that the conversation always ends up coming back to toilets. It's something that we are looking in, but not just as we're not just looking at it. There's lots of them. All of the organisations that Ken and Mark were talking about, we're all trying to find solutions, what works in different places. Yeah. So on.
Is that composting? Sorry to hijack the conversation a little bit, but is that composting loos in terms of the traditional way that we would think about them, or are we talking about the sort of closed system, high tech sort of jobs?
I'm not sure, but Jill can take over, because I know she's very, very well versed in this.
Hi, so I work for Forestry and Land as well with Fiona, and I'm based down in the National Park at Loch Lomond in the Trossachs. So unlike a lot of other places, they have a camping management bylaw in place down in Loch Lomond in the Trossachs. So it doesn't exist anywhere else, and it's been on the go for the last 4 years. So management of our whole area in that pocket is complex, as you can imagine. There's a lot of partners involved, and a lot of it does fall onto our land ownership, but we have to work together in quite a joint up way. Composting toilets first, I'll touch on. In my patch, we have a kind of formalised campsite called Salakey. It's on the banks of East Loch Lomond. And we have a closed system composting toilet that's been there since 2012. I'm not going to say that it's the most successful composting toilet system. It's complicated, but it probably doesn't need to be as complicated as it is. But it's a kind of a chamber system that probably was quite expensive at the time. And I know that up in Tay region, we've got another site called Alien Woods, and they have a composting toilet system, which is much more simple, I think, with the kind of sawdust style. I don't know which one's the best. I don't know which one's the most successful. I know that our system probably causes us more problems than it's worth, and actually maybe it would have been better just to be on the mains water supply. Instead, it just involves a lot of PPE and quite unpleasant maintenance that maybe doesn't need to exist at all. So I don't know what the right answer is. It'd be interesting to see what other people do with theirs. And then the other point I was going to make was, just touching back on this camping bylaw. We have our own kind of ranger staff members who are out on the ground doing general patrols, but we also work in partnership with the National Park Authority rangers, and they manage camping in a way where kind of car camping, that sort of dirty camping that was called, was a real problem in Loch Lomond and the Trossachs. So easily accessed from so many main kind of cities in Scotland, you know, an hour, half an hour drive, that they put these bylaws in place just to try and manage the amount of people who were coming. I mean, abandoned campsites and litter and toileting was kind of getting a bit out of control. So people have to book in advance to come to camp in the national park if they're going to be fairly roadside by loch shores. You have to buy a permit in advance. There's limited numbers, and once they're full, there's no more space for people. And it's supposed to try and manage, if you really want to go wild camping, you're going to walk for miles into the hills, and you're going to be probably quite responsible to begin with, and take everything you need and take it all away with you. But the ranger service is more focused on these lochside campers who are going to bring, you know, everything from their house and then potentially leave it behind. So there's less engagement with the wild off-grid style folk. They're sort of being left trusted to do their own thing, and the engagements with maybe the people who are city dwellers who need a little bit more advice and help. So it's a well, not everyone loves the bylaw. It's definitely causes a lot of conflict, and it's not easy to manage. There's a lot of pros and cons for why it's good and why it's not good. But it's probably not going to be something that's going to go away. I think we're 4 years in, and that's how we're going to manage it. So yeah, that's a big management decision that was made that's working. But again, infrastructure on toilet facilities is still something that we don't have, and toilets, like you say, Fiona, we always end up talking about toilets. They're always the major problem. So
great, thanks for that, Jill.
I was just going to add, sorry, that we've got a phosphate issue in some of our catchments on the Wye and the Usk, and certainly toileting with we've probably got 1 million people that come through those catchments. And so obviously that's something to take into consideration when we're looking to provide facilities. We prefer them to be closed and not contribute to the probably antiquated, existing sewage system. That I wouldn't have full confidence in that, not adding further phosphates and so on to the, to the tributaries and what have you. So yeah, it's a challenge, but we do have a project that's, funnily enough, funded through Welsh Government that I'm looking at the moment to employ architects to do like an appraisal for a new site with off-grid facilities, including toilets. So it'd be interesting to see what comes out of that in the next few months. Thanks
for that. I'm very conscious of time. I think in 60 seconds we'll be transported back into the main room. So just before we do that, I think we've got all the hands. Shale, did you want to come back in there, or is that a legacy hand?
It's a legacy hand.
No problem, thank you. Just any final comments or any observations, especially from those out with Scotland, from what you've heard this morning, or any advice or guidance for us back the way?
I was just going to say to Shale, when he mentioned about accessibility, we do have a couple of accessible trails, forestry and land, I think in the whole of Scotland at the moment. Do we have 3? Is that right, Fiona? Maybe even 2. One is based at a visitor centre, and another one I think is based in West Region. But we are currently kind of working towards trying to look into how we can make them more accessible picnic areas, accessible viewpoints, and accessible trails. It's definitely on our radar to try and make more, certainly in my patch down in the national park.
Definitely.
Just one quick one, just to ensure, are you guys also working amongst the communities with some of the representatives of disabled communities? Just thought I'd make sure, just get that in.
Yes, we do. And from a point of view of reaching the visitors, we're also, we did quite a lot of work a couple of years ago with the Ewan's Guide. So we've probably got about 30 of our sites on Ewan's Guide. There were 4 already there that other people had put up. We're not getting massive feedback, but you know, that's fine. And one of the key things that we've done, it's not an infrastructure thing directly, but in terms of letting people, we've tried to get away from the this is what you can do, but the other way, it's like, this is what we've got. Providing the right information about the surface of a trail, for example, and the gradient, and so people know what they can do. As well as we've got a number of all ability trails which have got the the wheelchair symbol. So they're one of the ones in Jill's patch is particularly good at the Lodge Forest Visitor Centre. It's amazing, really, really beautiful.